Live streams are fun, aren't they? Uh, this is cool. I need to do more of these. I always tell you guys that as we get started. We've got some fun news we're going to be talking about today. Really appreciate you guys joining. We're going to talk a little sports ball. I don't know if you guys know much about me, but I don't really follow sports ball all that much. Because why? I got better things to do in life. But we're going to talk about the illustrious Tom Brady a little bit. And I didn't know he was as much of a crypto guy. Like, he said some things this week that were pretty interesting to me, and my level of respect for him has gone up. And so we're going to talk about a little bit of that. We're also going to talk about some mainstream adoption that's coming into the crypto market that I think is really cool. There's area of concern for sure, and maybe some areas of worry of like what's happening. But I'm going to relate it all back today to like the technology bell curve. And I've seen this happen, right? Like I'm still in my late 30s. And I was a kid of the 90s and I guess 80s too. And I got to see the internet go from like edge use case, like where you're typing in like terminal commands to even connect to like a BBS. I know I'm dating myself. Into mass adoption, where like it's built into your phone and you don't even think about it every single day. So we're going to talk about all that today. It's going to be a lot of fun. We got Jackal checking in from Texas. How are you, my friend? It's great to be glad you're with us. And Levent from Germany. That is awesome. Germany is on the bucket list of places for me to go visit when this whole pandemic thing will allow it. So we have a bunch of people piling in here, and this is awesome. Really appreciate you guys joining. Definitely share this out with some friends. Welcome to my channel, by the way. I didn't even say hello to you. So my name is Wes Spencer. I'm a technologist. I love cybersecurity. It's like who I am. It's my DNA and what I do. I have a background in banking, a background in like threat intelligence sharing, all this kind of stuff. And I got into crypto because it's very adjacent. I've been in crypto for many, many years, getting close to a decade now. And it captured me because of its concepts of encryption and privacy, all of this. And I sort of stumbled into it from research a long time ago and never looked back. And, you know, this channel for me is like a summation of all that together. So I really appreciate you guys joining me. A couple things I'd love for you to hit like and subscribe. I'd love for you to check out memberships. Those are some additional things you can do. Members do actually have the ability to, I'll see when you chat as a member, I can pick that out a lot more. So it's kind of a cool little feature inside of membership that really lets you distinguish yourself, if that's right for you. If not, no big deal. Totally no big deal. I don't do this full time. I'm not going to be a full-time YouTuber. I have no desire to get into that space. I love startups, and I love just creating your own financial independence. And that's what this channel is all about. So let's jump in. Maybe my first question for you guys on the stream, have you had a chance? I know it's kind of a long video. It's like almost 30 minutes, which is way longer than I mean to make them. But have you guys seen my scam video that I just made on like how easy it is to create a crypto scam? Give me some feedback if you guys watched that. Hey, Ramoy, appreciate you joining today. The reason I made that video, if you watch the beginning of it, I talk about how often I get hit up on my email from people wanting me to sponsor for their crypto project. And I'm okay with like people reaching out to me. On some occasions, I will take a sponsor. And I'll tell you when I take a sponsor. One of my biggest sponsors, of course, is Celsius. They don't sponsor every video, but I have a sponsorship with them where I work pretty in depth with them. But most of these token projects, it's an unassaulting, like never-ending stream of people reaching out. And most of them are complete scams. Most of them don't go anywhere at all. And the reason for it is because there's a low barrier to entry. And when you think about technologies or businesses or industries where you have a low barrier to entry, you're going to see a lot of people kind of come into this space because it's easy to do. When you have something that's really complex and a high barrier to entry, you see a lot of times maybe less scams. And if you do see one, it's really, really insidious, right? It's very, very complex. And so that's why there's so many of them out there. And not all of these burn tokens and deflationary tokens are a total scam, but many of them completely are. So go check that video out if you haven't seen it. I know it's long. I did put chapters so you can kind of skip around into the things you may want to see, but I really kind of deep dive into like how easy it is to make them. And what I thought I would do just for a minute on today's live stream is just show you the scam coin I made. So this right here is Dictator coin. And I think it's really interesting. Let me switch my views here. There we go. So this is Dictator Coin that I created. If you guys follow me on LinkedIn, I'm always talking about how, hey, when I'm elected dictator, we're not going to have all these cybersecurity problems or scam problems. It's just a total joke that I do on my LinkedIn channel. And it's caught on. I have a friend that's printed off a whole bunch of these like West for Dictator 2020 or 2021 like stickers he gives out to people, all this stuff. And so I decided I'm going to create Dictator token. And it's a legit real token. It's maybe not legit. I mean, it's legit in the sense that it actually exists and it's on the Binance Smart Chain. But in the video, I showed how easy it is to create, like literally $150 or so for me. And I had the whole thing up and running. I fed a liquidity pool into Pancake Swap so you can actually buy and sell. I had a few friends reach out yesterday and they're like, hey, Wes, I actually bought some of your token. I'm like, that's not the point. Like, the point is to show you this stuff is no barrier to entry. You can just create it on your own. But I, like literally showing how this stuff is made, right? I even created my little promo video and I paid a Cameo guy to do one of these. I think Cameo is so fun. Let me know what your guys' favorite Cameo actor is, because I would love to like tap one for a future video that I may make. There's so many Cameo people that are on there, like Vanilla Ice and so I can't think of them now, so I'm on live stream, but there's so many of them, I guess is my point. And so it's easy to do, right? Let's take a peek at the comments here, just to take a minute. Yeah, so thank you. Silwex says that the video on scam coins was great, and the coin might get adoption. I hope it doesn't get adoption. It better not get adoption. Tim Furnett saying, wait, it's a scam. I know Tim, he's a good friend of mine. He is totally joking, my friend. So anyway, check this out. And like I literally go through just how a scammer would do. I guess I didn't create a white paper or a light paper. But you can see like how it works with the tokenomics. I created 10 trillion of those because why not? I could have created 100 quadrillion or whatever number I wanted. I didn't do any burning like a lot of the burn tokens do initially. So they're all sitting there. In fact, I probably didn't give enough into the liquidity pool for it to even go into mass adoption. So I created this to warn you guys, right? And let me give you an example of this. I talked about this in the video as well. If there's one thing in CoinMarketCap I hate, and all the rest of them are this way too, it's this biggest gainers. They need to take that off. Because anybody new into crypto that's never gotten into the space before is going to jump in and be like, well, what's Floki Gravity and this Axionomics and Little Bunny Rocket? Like, I want to get into those guys right there, and I want to buy them, because wow, 15 bajillion% increase. Well, yeah, it's easy when it literally had no value and then it blew up out of nowhere. So I find that this is a completely unhelpful biggest gainers, unless like they had like maybe like a 2 to 3 month delay on like gainers. Like maybe that would be better. That way you can get some actual data science into it, and the early pump and dump is gone from the mechanism. But that's my strong advocation to CoinMarketCap and the others is please don't show that. All it's going to do is just add more to the hype cycles and the misinformation around what crypto really is. Of like, get rich quick, find these like unknown, our moonshot cryptos and be a bajillionaire. It's just not how it works. And that's why I made the video, to warn you about all that stuff. Yeah. So Fred's favorite coin is Pi. That's good, Fred. That's cool. I like Pi. Pi is a pretty interesting one. I think Remy is saying the same thing from Pi, and you're here now. Awesome. You guys know I do cover Pi quite a bit, and I think it's a pretty interesting coin. Jackal Dictator NFTs. Why don't you make me a Dictator NFT, and maybe we'll mint one of those. That would be fun to play. I haven't really played around much with minting of NFTs, but I think NFTs are super cool. And I've covered them a little bit. If you didn't watch my secret video that I did last week with one of the secret and Whispernode guys, Brendan Kittredge, we had a really fun time discussing NFTs and their use cases inside of secret. And I did a video on NFTs adjacently anyway with trying to remember the name of it. Flow Crypto. I think that's super cool by Dapper Labs. They're the ones that do like NBA Top Shots, and they're now expanding into like UFC and Premier League soccer and all the other sports ball that's out there. And I love it, right? Even though I'm not the world's greatest sports ball fan, I'm a big believer when you can find mass adoption getting into crypto, which is a lot of what we're talking about today. So yeah, okay. So let's move on a little bit. Those of you here in the States, and I would imagine most of you not, probably know Tom Brady, right? I guess most people would say he's the greatest football player of all time, or at least quarterback. I mean, could be up for debate, and I really don't care. It's just he plays sports ball, and he's phenomenally rich. He happens to live in Tampa. I happen to live in Tampa. When he first moved in, he was in Derek Jeter's house, which is just off the Hillsborough River or whatever. And so you could see his house. You could like take a boat and like boat by his house. And Tampa police finally stationed a boat. And I think he paid for it. They stationed a boat there 24/7 because people are always driving up to the back of his house trying to peep on him and Giselle. Like, come on, Tampa. Can you guys not be better about this? Give the man some privacy. All he does is sling a football. I was going to call it a foosball. Like, why do you care so much about it? So anyway, if you're watching the Bucks game, the Buccaneers game this weekend, and again, if you didn't, I can't blame you. I did have it on, but I wasn't really paying attention to it. He threw his 600th touchdown. So like, that's a big deal, right? I don't know how many other quarterbacks have ever thrown 600, maybe none, maybe a few, but it's a big deal, right? To throw 600 touchdowns. I mean, dude is like 40 something now. It's incredible. And the guy he threw it to gave the football away, and he's known for that. I think that guy got he received 3 touchdowns from Tom that day. And his thing, I think his name is Mike Evans. He always gives the football away. He always runs up to somebody in the crowd and gives it away. It's just his thing. I think that's awesome, by the way, like, good for him. But he didn't know that was Tom's 600th touchdown, and he gave the football away. The announcers were all like, whoa, like, that's a big deal. He's not going to get that football back. That's an iconic part of Tom Brady's history. I'm sure he'd love the ball back, but he's not going to get it. And so they made a big deal of all of that for a really long time. And all of a sudden, I guess there was some communication. Maybe somehow he reached out to the Buccaneers agency, the guy that got the football. His name is Byron Kennedy. And they call him in this article a kind-hearted fan. And here's what's kind of neat is I guess he arranged to give the football back. And there's some interesting things that happen. Let me zoom in a little bit more so you can see the words like I can see the words. There we go. So he gave the football back, and Tom and I guess the Buccaneers did some cool stuff in return, right? I mean, obviously that football could be worth a whole lot of money in the long run, right? But Byron, being a cool fan, gave it back. And look what happened. It wasn't just what I'm about to show you, but it started with a signed jersey from Tom. That's kind of cool. A helmet, game cleats, and then $1,000 credit to be spent at the official store. Like, what do you need $1,000 for Bucks gear for? Like, how much gear do you actually need? Whatever. And then passes. This is kind of cool. So passes. So you can go to any Bucks game the rest of the season. Like, that's really cool. They did him right. But then look at this. Now Brady has sweetened the deal by giving Kennedy a whole Bitcoin. Dude, like, first of all, I'm like, that's generous. I mean, obviously the guy's like, who knows how many hundreds of millions he has. So, right, I get it. But that's still generous. Like, that's still, I was surprised by that. And, he quoted, I knew how much it meant to Tom and I was willing to make the trade. Well, I mean, I guess I'd make the trade too. But that's really cool that Tom did it. And then I was like, I didn't know Tom is big into Bitcoin. I remember reading some news articles about Tom Brady like liking Bitcoin, but I didn't know until I started jumping into this just how much Tom is into crypto, right? So he talks about it, how he would love one day for him to be like for partial salaries to be paid in Bitcoin. A lot of athletes have talked about that in other sports. But then Solana is one of his top of his wish list. And I'm like, wait, hold on. I'm going to throw the pen down for a minute. I'm like, wait. Tom Brady knows about Solana? Like, I can walk down the street to a lot of people and they have no idea what it is. There's probably a lot of people on my channel that don't follow Solana. I've never even made a video about Solana, although I know a ton of YouTubers that do. It's a cool project, by the way. But Tom knows it. And I don't know. It just surprised me, right? To think about how much that guy, is concentrated on football, but he knows some crypto, like to even have that in the list. I thought that was pretty cool. So anyway, I just thought I'd start with that story because it's cool. And I love seeing that. Now, do I think like Tom Brady is going to drive the market into like, crypto blow? No. Do I think one day you're going to see him as a sponsor on a lot of like crypto projects, like where he's like a paid endorser? 100% we're going to see that, right? Like, you better believe big crypto companies like Coinbase see this and like, we could really use this. I mean, you see Tom Brady on like Subway commercials. I think you're going to eventually see him and others that are crypto related because of his advocacy for it. So I think it's good, right? What is that teaching us? Here's the moral of the story that I think we can like jump into is this. It's adoption. You have the greatest football player, in my mind, of all time talking about crypto. That didn't happen 5 years ago. Like, so the story, I want you guys to remember this. Today's theme is adoption. Okay, just keep that in mind. So adoption. All right, so let's move on a little bit. Another article that I thought was interesting. You guys know I've been covering here in the States crypto adoption. I'm sorry, crypto regulation. I know there's a bunch of you guys on my channel that are not here in the States, so just bear with me on this one. I realize what's happening in the US is certainly not reflective of what's going to happen in your country. Oh, and by the way, so I saw a really cool comment that just came in before I get into this from Elon. Tom Brady's NFT platform is called Autograph. I think many athletes are learning and jumping into crypto. It's pretty cool. I agree. I think you're exactly right. And I think, again, the use cases that like NBA Top Shots has painted and brought forth, there's definitely a use case there for someone like Tom to lead off a powerful NFT platform like Autograph. It's really cool. And I'd love to cover that in the channel at some point. So yeah. Okay. And Jackal's saying he's been emailing his company's payroll to have a portion of compensation in crypto, but no luck. And you email them multiple times a week. I have no idea who your company is. Promise you the HR guy. Like, what is Bitcoin? What is crypto? Like, how? Like, no. I think it's awesome. I'm not making fun. I'm just saying, like, I know how conservative HR departments are, and I'm with you. One day, maybe that'll be possible. And there are some crypto projects where you can actually have your payroll sent to them as sort of like a bank via ACH, and then you can have them convert some of it to crypto for you. I'm struggling to remember a couple of those. I think with Coinbase's debit card, you might be able to do that, but there's a couple others that are coming out that are allowing that capability because they realize that like companies aren't going to be willing to do it, but you could send your entire payroll to them and have them immediately make the cut into some. There are companies that know that, Jackal. You might want to check a few of those out. Okay, so let's move back into regulation, right? So there's regulations of brewing in the States, and there's a lot of reasons for it. And there's a lot of camps of people that have a lot of good opinions of this, right? So one camp is, you know, the very libertarian side that says, and I'm not picking politics today, guys, and I don't do that on my channel at all, but there's one side that legitimately says the federal government views this as a threat to the financial ecosystem. I get it, right? I see where those arguments come from. They're grounded in some reality. And there's different versions of how far you might be able to take that. The other side of the house is like, no, it's all about protecting the financial well-being of citizens or whatever. You know, we boil it down to that. And there's a legitimacy there too. So my thing is like this. How do we meet in the middle with this? We know regulation's coming. Like I've done a bunch of videos already on regulation. I feel like that's one like contribution I can make to the crypto sphere because I'm an old banker and I've worked in and among regulators you know, even FBI and DHS and other groups, not just like FDIC and OCC and Treasury and FinCEN and all these, but I've been around regulators in a vast portion of my career. So I know how they act. I know how they think. I know how they move. And one thing that's true that both sides of this camp will agree on is it's coming and we can't stop it from coming. And I think we all knew it was coming, but what's driving it from coming? What's the driver for it? Well, let me ask you guys, what did I say today's theme is about? Do anyone remember? Adoption. It's all about adoption. We've been talking about adoption today. And so adoption drives regulation. If there's very poor adoption and no one's using crypto, why would they care? Like there's no risk to the financial well-being. There's no risk to the usefulness of the sector, right? No threat to it. So they wouldn't care. Well, adoption forces care. And so this is an interesting one. I've already talked about why stablecoins they're drawing the ire first. If you haven't seen my like stablecoin video on regulation, you got to go and watch it. Should just be able to search for it, like search in my channel for like regulation and it'll come right up. And here's why they're going after it. So you guys know stable coins, there's a lot of different ways to do stable coins. Like you have those that are like Tether, for example. And, you know, for the longest time, a lot of those USDC and all these are like, hey, you know, we're backing this with like fiat. So like, you know, I'll just throw a number out. Maybe in the early days, like we have $100 million of like US dollars that are pegged and stored safely, which is why we can then say this stable coin is a one-to-one equivalent of what we have stored. And initially people are like, well, that's so cool. But as time goes on, we started to realize it's not exactly the way that Tether has said. And I'm not totally picking on Tether, but we're gonna share about some of this. Those are the things that concern regulators. And then what happens is think of stable coins as like this middleware between the fiat ecosystem and crypto. And so if I think the market is going to really go up, then what I might want to do is sell a bunch of transfer my stable coin into like the crypto I think is going up. Conversely, if crypto is really high and I want to get out of it before it nosedives, what do? I transfer that crypto into a stable coin. So then when the market dives, I've dodged those losses. And that ability to move back and forth between those systems is what drives such high APYs from like Celsius, BlockFi, and all the other earn systems that are out there, because there's deep need for both stablecoin and for crypto. Serves as like that arbitrage between all of it. And that's what scares regulators. They're like, whoa, wait, first of all, this isn't like truly a one-to-one pegged system. Second, they're like the APYs out of these things are so high, way more than like a bank lending out cash, that this thing could come tumbling down because it's sort of the wild, wild west. In fact, even SEC chair Gary Gensler called them poker chips. I've talked about this on my channel before. So this article that came out is pretty interesting, right? There's a couple things that I want to pick out and share with you here. So Bloomberg cited several anonymous sources familiar with the Treasury report, saying that it will call upon Congress to pass legislation regulating stablecoins. And then aggressive lobbying by Gensler, who I just mentioned, right? So he's been pretty heavy into this. And he has, and they're arguing that, look, the SEC has existing powers to oversee these tokens. And that the CFTC, which is a different group, is also going to get into some of this, at least in theory as well. And that they have an oversight role. So that's kind of interesting. Oh, and I had a tab open that I didn't share. Let me bring this up for you guys really quick, because I forgot to share this. Let me get back to it. I have to move around for a second. So if you guys want to hear a really cool podcast, check this one out right here. I'll put it in the YouTube comments later. This is from the Unchained podcast, and it was really, really good. And they interviewed Dan and Brian, both from the CFTC. My opinion out of it is Brian knows what he's talking about. Brian is younger. He gets it. It's not just because he's younger, but he gets it, right? He understands the use of crypto. Dan made some comments that might scare me a little bit. But this is a really good podcast that happened back in August that covers a lot of this in a really, really insightful way. So you definitely need to check this out, because I think it really will give you some insights. So check that out. Okay, so going back down, so we're seeing this happen. We see that regulators are into it. We see that they're trying to grasp it so that they can then figure out, well, how do we regulate this? And I will say, I don't think regulators are trying to destroy stablecoins. They're trying to make sure they maintain their own influence and positioning as a federal government and federally backed fiat, the US dollar. But they're also trying to figure out, how do we not completely wreck the innovation in this ecosystem? Because if we wreck it, other countries will certainly not be afraid of it at all, right? And so this is where they're I'm just telling you, this is where they're at. I've been around these guys for a really long time. And they even mentioned that, like Facebook has tried to get into this. They even mentioned, I forget where, it's somewhere on here. Yeah, here it is. There was even a lawsuit by CFTC against, I guess, New York State Attorney General, I guess is the right way to say it, because USDT that I mentioned before says it was always backed by dollars, but a large portion of its reserves are in cash equivalents and more risky investments. In other words, like imagine my house, right? I have $100,000 of equity in my house, and I use that to say, well, that's partially what's backing my stable coin. That's sort of the idea. I can see why that's a threat, right? Like USDT is doing this themselves. So we're going to see regulation. What it looks like, I'm very eager to know. And I will keep my ear to the ground for you guys and give you my opinions. By the way, this channel, I should say this is all just my opinions. Please don't take the words that I say like seriously. I'm not your financial advisor. If you listen to me, you're going to go broke. If you listen to any YouTuber that's out there, you're going to go broke, right? So like do your own due diligence, all that stuff, right? There's your disclaimer. Okay. So I think that's interesting. And again, what was the key topic of today's live stream? Adoption. Remember that? So we're coming back to this. You're seeing regulation get into this because adoption is driving this. All right. So some comments coming in here because you guys are awesome. Thanks for joining the live stream today, guys. This has been a lot of fun. I love talking to you guys. What else do we see here? Let's see. What am I missing here? A bunch of people chatting about world governments and all that. Yeah, I hear you. I've heard, so Silwek is mentioning the Silk stablecoin. I do know Silk because I've talked to the secret guys on it. And I think you're onto something. I think there's going to be a pretty big drive into like privacy-based stablecoins that just resist government influence. That's going to happen. It's natural, whether you like it or not. It doesn't matter. It's going to do well. Adam Farnsworth, thanks for checking in, man. Adam, hope you're doing good. Appreciate you, man. Really do appreciate you on this channel. You are one of my favorites. Appreciate you. Okay, so I'm gonna move on past this, and then let's jump into the next one. So it's not just like the federal regulators on the SEC and CFTC side. Now you're seeing banks jump into this as well. And FDIC, this came from Reuters. This happened today. The FDIC is like, well, how can we allow banks to get involved in this? Now, before I even show you the article, let's ask ourselves a question. Why would banks want to get involved in this? Well, what do banks do? Banks store our money, our assets, and then lend that out to others to make their own profit out of it. I mean, there's a lot. I don't mean to oversimplify it. That's a big piece of what a bank does. In return, at least in the States, the bank gives you back security, access to those funds in easy ways, fraud protection, some amount of regulation and regulatory oversight, like it or not, that like forces them into like stability. You know, post Great Depression back in the 30s, you know, banks have gone down this deep journey of like, how do we make sure that they're stable? And this is why, at least in the States, we don't keep money under mattresses anymore. So banks would love to get their hands on crypto. Why? It's an asset that they can store. It's something that they could use to do some creative things like lending against. And there's a lot of people that would love to be able to bring into the banking ecosystem their crypto assets to loan and leverage against them. So let me give you a little secret of like how high net worth individuals do stuff. They don't leave money in a checking account, just keep it there. Inflation sucks. Why do that? So they're taking their money and they're earning it in other ways. Remember we talked about Tom Brady? No idea how much crypto he has, but I tell you why he's got a bunch of it. He probably took millions worth. Again, I'm speculating, but he probably took millions worth and pushed it into crypto. Why? So it can grow as an alternative asset for us, not just sitting there as cash. This is why you talk to a lot of people, Warren Buffett and others, that are constantly investing in stocks and real estate and all these other non-cash kinds of things to grow. Well, banks have a direct correlation in all that because they're the ones that allow it. And then you can take those assets that you own and loan against them to grow them. This is the secret for high net worth individuals. That's how they operate. But banks are not able to, because banks don't have the regulatory clarity to understand, could we store crypto and how would it work and how could we lend against it? That's what this article is all about. So I'm not going to go through every little piece of this, but there's a couple quotes that really stood out to me, right? So Jelena McWilliams, which I guess this is her right here, was talking about leading this charge and like, how can we define regulatory clarity for all of them? And she says, I think we need to allow banks in the space while appropriately managing and mitigating the risk. And then this is really telling. Listen to this quote right here. If we don't bring this activity inside the banks, it's going to develop outside the banks, and the federal regulators won't be able to regulate it. Yeah, you think? Like, I want to tell her, Jelena, or whatever her name is, Jelena, yeah, this is already happening. Like, you get it? It's not just Celsius either. It's BlockFi, it's Gemini, it's Nexo. There's like a bunch of these non-bank lenders. And in fact, you guys know, I say with Celsius all the time, somewhere on here, they even call themselves there it is, unbank. Like their entire messaging is unbank, because banks don't let you get into crypto and you can't lend against them and you can't what's called leverage with them. You can't do those things. So what am I trying to say? Banks see this. Banks are crying foul. Why are all these innovators doing something that we can't do because regulatorily you haven't given us the clarity to be able to do this? Hassan says in the comments, what do you think about this? El Salvador became the first country in the world to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender. This goes hand in hand with this. Other countries that are, let me just say it this way, probably the most comfortable way I'm comfortable saying this in a live stream. They're saying we're better off by allowing this. And it's not a threat to our national currency. Best way for me to say it. I have more thoughts on it I'm going to share than that. But that's why they're doing. You're going to see other countries continue to go that way as well, adopting Bitcoin or other cryptos as legal tender, and not like a creation of their own, like a US dollar coin or like a yuan coin or something. No, like actual crypto. So you're going to see more of it, is my point. Okay, so getting back to this. The FDIC says this, and they're trying to get into this to allow it and you see right here, my goal in this interagency group, I think this is the same person, is to basically provide a path for banks to be able to act as a custodian, use crypto assets, digital assets as some form of collateral. Here it is, collateral. And so again, this is why Celsius and others are growing. By the way, I'm a big fan of Celsius. I will say this, just shameless plug. In my description, the YouTube descriptions, every one of them, I've got a referral code. If you would like to use Celsius, check it out. You definitely will be able to make some bonuses if you use my referral code. Don't have to, but check it out if it's right for you. But you guys know I'm a big fan of Celsius. I've done multiple videos of them. We'll continue to do so because I really like what they're doing. And they're fitting and filling a need that we don't have in the crypto space. I'm sorry, in the banking space, because you're not allowed to. And remember what I said, guys? What's the key theme of today? What's the A word? Adoption. Yes, adoption. So we're all about adoption today. And when regulators see that they're falling behind the innovative curve, they do two things. How do we regulate this back into some amount of control? And two, how do we allow regulation to allow freedom so that we can expand all of this and continue to have grips on it? Like, that's how regulators think. So there you are. Adoption. All right, move on, because we got more for this, right? So here's the next little piece I wanted to share with you. This comes from CNBC. Again, came out today. Mastercard, and I've talked about this before, but Visa and Mastercard are hot and heavy in crypto. They do not see it as a threat. They see it as an opportunity. They will tell you, if you talk to the highest ups of highest ups at the big card carriers, that they don't want to become the Kodak, of like the digital film world, and everyone leaves Kodak behind. They don't want to be that. And so their view is, how do we adopt crypto into what we offer? And you're already seeing this come out with like crypto-based credit cards. I did a video of like 5 of my favorite crypto, like debit card, credit cards that are out there and why I like them. So check that video out if you want to see more. I'm not going to spend too much time on this article either, but I do want to talk about a couple of things. So they're preparing to announce, integrations that allow more things. What's that going to look like? Well, right now, this article is a little frustrating because it's so vague, but it includes things like Bitcoin wallets, credit and debit cards, like I've talked about. And then this is cool, earning rewards in crypto and enabling digital assets to be spent, loyalty being converted into Bitcoin, all that kind of stuff. That's really cool. Like, you guys probably know this, at least here in the States. That's a big deal. Like, those are things that, like, points are a huge driver in the crypto space. I'm sorry, the credit card space. And so figuring out how to get that incorporated with crypto is will be a big driver in the future for credit cards. So people really looking like, well, I don't have, the average everyday money to like buy crypto, but I do use a credit card and I pay it off every month. And so I can use those points to grow my crypto. That's awesome. And that's where you're seeing a lot of this. So points are a huge driver in retail credit card marketplace. And so we're going to see this happen all the more. Jackal is saying Texas regulators are after Celsius. It makes you sad. Yeah, I'm going to wait to see what comes out of the news for all of that. But it's natural. Like, my commentary on that at a high level, Jackal, would be like, hey, it's going to happen. And they're going to come after him. And hopefully, Celsius and others are able to navigate those waters and know how to handle those regulations open, instead of being like fighting conversation to say, okay, well, better way that makes you happy. How can we meet? And many regulators are willing to do that when you work with them in that way. So yeah, we'll see what happens inside the city of Texas. By the way, Levent T says he's wishing everyone a great day. Thanks, man. I appreciate the kind words. Joel, do you see MasterCard or Visa overtaking a first-to-market company like Cash App? My view on that, probably not. I still see MasterCard and Visa. They're sort of like the layer one of like Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin is in Ethereum, or like layer other things are built on top. Really, where MasterCard and Visa want to be themselves, they're the interchange, and they're the ones that are making the money off those small fees. And so their view is like, how do we continue to incentivize a credit card ecosystem and still make fees on that and encourage all of that. So even if it moves into like Bitcoin transactions, leveraging Visa in some way and them taking a snippet and piece out of it, that's what they're after. Like, their big threat would be crypto removing the need for fiat payments. And so their view is, well, instead of trying to fight that, why don't we get involved in that and make it easier? Remember, adoption? That's the word today. That's the word of the day. So that's what I see, Joel, is that's kind of how I see how it works. All right. Jezzy says hi. Hey, Jezzy, how are you, man? Thanks, or whoever you are. Thanks for joining today. Okay, so the other thing they mentioned is the way that MasterCard is going about this is partnering with Bakkt. And I'm going to show you backed in just a second. They were spun off by ICE Intercontinental Exchange. They're like the ones that own New York Stock Exchange and all that. Like many people have not heard of ICE, but they're pretty big and they're pretty influential in the financial market space. Okay, so let's check this out. What is backed? I've shared backed on one of my videos, and I can't remember which one it was in the olden days. But here it is. And at some point I'll have to do a larger review. What's kind of cool about it is they're just bringing in, they say this, the digital economy. They're bringing into credit cards the ability to have a rewards ecosystem, all that kind of stuff. So you kind of partner with them. So for example, if you're a bank and you offer a credit card, you could bring crypto in using backed. So definitely a pretty nice looking, well-designed app for sure. And then you can see down here for consumers, you bring all your crypto together, rewards, gift cards, all into one house. For businesses, you can actually enable all of this and actually create a loyalty program that's like crypto enabled. That's super cool. I would be exploring that if I ran a company that had a large retail footprint. Absolutely, I would. So hopefully, Joel, that answers your question, right? Like you can see through the woods here, so to speak, and understand this is where they're going. Silwek, you're right. First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. And I would say I would even add to that, and then they join you. Winning is them joining you. That's the way it's going to go because they're not dumb, right? These people have brought in a lot of I know Visa and Mastercard because I know people there. They brought in a ton of crypto people. They know what they're doing in crypto and they know how to get involved in this. So again, adoption's the key word. And by the way, look at their stock price for backed. For the largest part of this year is trading at just shy of 10, and now it's shot up to 23. This news is certainly running today. What does this happen? It really shot up just a couple days ago. Yeah. And by the way, I'm not saying like this article came out here. Like I'm not saying this was the article that drove it, but this came out on the 25th, which is yesterday. And then the stock price took its run up on roughly the 22nd and 3rd. Isn't it always that way? It's always the growth of the insiders that know and spill the beans, and up it goes. It's insider trading or whatever you want to call it. And then the regulars like you and me like, oh, that's why it blew up. Yep, that's the way it goes. Welcome to this world, right? Okay, so this is really what I wanted to finish on today, is the adoption curve. And I want to know from you guys, where do you think that adoption curve is at? Like, where do you think we're at in crypto? Don't look at this as like a progressive linear phase kind of thing where like we're only in this phase and only in this phase. It could be very distributed. Like maybe certain areas of like DeFi is here, but then like NFTs are there and layer 3 cryptos that are doing, something other than proof of stake are there. But I think overall, if we wanted to boil all of that or mix it into one pot of where I think we're at, you guys may think I'm crazy, but here's where I'm at. I still think we're pretty much in this innovator space with a little early adopter. Innovator, because we still don't know the future of like stable coins. We still are waiting to figure out so many like scale problems in crypto. It has so few actual everyday use cases that are useful to us, like great ideas that are coming out, but very, very, very little like new things that are like we're using every single day. I mean, that's true. Right. So we're still getting there. That's why I think for the most part, we're still in the early stage. We're in the innovator stage. We still have people innovating, creating some new things. But there's some examples where we're into early adopters, like I mentioned before, like Dapper Labs and NBA Top Shots, maybe Celsius and some of these DeFi lending places. Like we're still in the early adopters. But what separates innovator and early adopter from early majority is a couple things. It's not just adoption, our word of the day, but it's how adoption enables us to make things easier. So I'll give you an example of this. I remember in the super early days before even Mt. Gox, it was really hard to get a hold of crypto. Like you either had to mine it yourself or find a friend that had it or trust someone online and make a transaction. And then a crypto exchange was stood up. And then we went from innovators into early adopters with an exchange, which is Mt. Gox and some other early exchanges. And now we've made it even easier. Like people ask me all the time, how do I get into crypto? I'm like, I don't know, just find an exchange of your choice. Coinbase, Voyager, Kraken, Gemini. I mean, there's so many of them that are out there. Pick a good one and buy. And it's really simple. You do the KYC checks to make sure that you set up your bank account, you've bought crypto. It's not hard. It's not much different than like setting up with PayPal or Cash App or Venmo. And so in that space, we've sort of shifted. We're not even early adopters anymore in the crypto exchanges. We're still in like this early majority, I believe. So see what I mean? It's not all linear, but this is how adoption works. And to risk takers and to people that are willing to say, how can I innovate and do something amazing? And to early adopters that say, I will go through the pain of something challenging and difficult to get there, I will get the reward. I'll be the one that typically takes the reward earlier than others. Not in every case, right? Because also with early adoption comes risk. I know this from the companies I've started. I started a company called Perch. We sold about a year ago for many, many millions. You can look it up online to see how much we sold it for. But when we started that company, we had 1 month of funding and we were going to go bankrupt if we didn't figure out a way through. And so there's also early risk that comes with innovation and early adoption. But I think for the most part, where we're still at in crypto across the board is early adopters. And this is why we see regulation coming into play, trying to figure this thing out. This is why I think, at a high level, people are always like, are we too late into crypto? I'm like, well, it depends on what you mean. If you think Bitcoin is going to have 10,000 to 20,000% gains, from 2009 into 2018, yeah, those days are probably gone. But that doesn't mean that we're still not in the innovator and early adoption spaces in other ways. So I hope that makes sense for you. Adam, my friend, he agrees. Every few months, there's a new Pancake Swap Osmosis. It said platform is doing something new. Yeah, dude, no doubt. Super duper right on that. It is nonstop on this, and it's impossible to keep up. You guys are always asking me on live streams, Wes, what do you know about this project or that project or whatever? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't have time for it myself. I'm not a full-time YouTuber. I don't have a whole agency division on my channel that's constantly sourcing news so I can screen read what they say, right? That's not me. So I'm learning like you guys are. But I wanted you to give my insight into I still see adoption really, really, really growing, and we have a long way to go. And I think that's exciting. Remember how I started the live stream? If you didn't watch it, you have to go back and watch the beginning of it. But I remember the internet coming into adoption. We went from very, very difficult connections, PPP commands and telnet commands to get started through a terminal into early BBSs. Then finally, internet actually comes out with HTTP that allows us to connect to a website. And even then we're like, why? It's all dumb stuff or porn or whatever, right? And then finally, it's embedded into everything. Adoption takes a long time. That's where we're at with crypto. So I hope that makes sense. Okay, so let me know what questions you guys have. I'm going to spend about 5 more minutes with you guys just answering questions before I got to jump to the next thing. But it's been really fun talking to you guys. Really, really enjoyed it. A couple of things I will say. I hope I'm not asking too much from you. Would you hit like and subscribe and share this with your friends? I know you guys are in Telegram groups and others, and just man, Wes, I watched this video. It was awesome. Share it out. Would love for you to do that so I can continue to grow this channel. Definitely check out memberships if you want to jump in. So sink the ships. At some point I'm going to make a longer video about sink the ships. Now it's sink the hips. Sink the ships. There we go. It's one of my internal sayings. I've got a few of these that are just my internal motivators. And since you're asking, I'll give you just a bit of a look to it. But at some point I'll make a full video on this. But think about, you're making me think off the cuff here. We're really risk averse as humankind by and large. And oftentimes we risk assess ourselves out of things. And you guys know the story of Cortez. It's a horrible story of what Cortez did, when he came to the country. But he burned the ships, and his statement was burn the ships. And I don't want to copy Cortez because A, he said it, and B, yuck. I don't like Cortez. I don't like what he did. I don't like that he was responsible for all the horrible things that happened. But there's a lesson learned in all of that of why do we not take more risks in life and do things that are outside of our comfort zone? And this YouTube channel is an example of that. Or me being an entrepreneur is an example of that. And so what ships are in your way that are causing you to be risk averse? And how can you get those out of the way to do something that you've never done before, right? That's a piece of what sink the ships means to me. There's much more to it than that. And at some point I'll really dive into it. But that's it. Okay, so thank you for asking the question. That's it. That's a part of what sink the ships means to me. And I encourage you guys to think about the same thing. Do I know anything about Shiba Inu? Yeah, I bought some Shiba Inu. I don't really cover it on the channel. I bought it because I wanted to explore. I didn't go all in on it or anything, but it's blown up. Shiba is like Doge. There are some meme coins that don't really have a lot of value that the market decides that they like it and everyone wants it, including Elon. It's interesting, right? And I remember listening to a podcast by Vitalik, who one of the founders of Ethereum, and he talked about how he was sent a whole bunch of Shiba. He became a billionaire in Shiba, and then he got rid of it. And they sent it to him so they'd be like, "Look, Vitalik owns Shiba." It's a marketing play. But it's interesting. It's not one of those use case cryptos that's out there, but it's definitely one the market likes, and the market speaks as the market will. And who is Wes Spencer or any of us to say otherwise? So Shiba is an interesting one, and it's growing in adoption. I mean, now it's on Coinbase. It's kind of crazy. So there you have it. When will Pi reach 100 million? I don't know if I know what you mean. You mean 100 million users, Beardy Day Crypto? Or do you mean I don't know what you mean by 100 million. So you have to let me know. And am I a Pi whale? Well, I do know many thousands of people have come into Pi through my channel. And so, yeah, I do have a fair amount of Pi, but Pi, I don't care about that. Pi is interesting to me because it's an exploratory project that it's sort of viral in nature. It's sort of MLM-like in terms of referral codes. It's not a full MLM because people under me that I've invited, I get no benefit out of it. And I'm really glad that Pi is that way, because then otherwise it'd be a true MLM, it'd be a true pyramid scheme, but it's not a pyramid scheme when it's only one layer deep. Right. So it's an interesting play. It's based on Stellar, which I think Stellar is really cool. It's a small team, so that's why it's taking a long time for them to get going, but it's interesting. So maybe that's the most I know how to say. Yeah, Adam's saying, I remember how ridiculous texting was on his phone. Yep, I'm with you, man. And then today it's we have apps that do it for us. And it's not even SMS anymore. How much does Tom Brady have? Dude, I have no idea. Tom lives 30 minutes from me. I should go knock on his door and ask him, shouldn't I? We'll live stream it. I have no idea, but he's into crypto. I know that. Okay. So Mr. Beardy has replied back. So 100 million users. Here's my thoughts on that. I still think we're a long way from 100 million users, and I'm doubtful we'll get there. But I don't hear me say that as a negative. I don't think that matters. Maybe we'll get there if it continues the trend of growth, but we don't have to be at 100 million users before it goes to mainnet. There's no user requirement on Pi to get there. I think it's still going to take a lot of time before we get to that, but it doesn't. I guess my point is it doesn't matter. We don't have to be at 100 million users for anything special to happen. I hope that makes sense. It's not important to me. I don't think it's important to the core team. It's no big deal. Any thoughts on Cardano? I love Cardano. I've covered it quite a few times. I like that it's pushing the boundaries and addressing some of the challenges that Ethereum has in terms of scale. It's already proof of stake. Now that we have smart contracts that are there, I'm excited to see that come out. So Cardano is really, really, really cool. Its market cap is squeezed right now. It doesn't have a ton of room to grow in the current market. I have a few friends that are like, oh, Cardano to $30. I'm like, it doesn't support it. But that doesn't mean that I think long-term Cardano is not going somewhere hot and heavy. I think it will. And I love Cardano. I'm a big fan of it. And I think it's a great innovator. So yeah. Do I believe in a Pi network credit? Don't know what that means. Maybe you can clarify what you mean by that. Levent, I think a couple of cryptos will blow up at the end of next year. I agree. I don't know what the ISO number is. Not sure what you mean by that, but yeah. What else do we have here? $8 to $20. Yeah, I mean, look, maybe, but I don't price speculate. You guys should know this about me. I do not, will not, have not price speculate. Every YouTuber that price speculates at some point is wrong. Sometimes they're wrong within a week, and it's like they ignore they even made the video. And I'm like, why embarrass myself? The truth is, we all guess on these things. I think it's fun to guess. But I'm not going to put my channel influence into price speculation because I don't know any better than anyone else does. And anyone that says they do is still just speculating, right? So keep that in mind when you listen to influencers that are out there. You got to be careful about that. What is Cardano trying to solve in the wider financial market? Danny, that's an insightful question. I think they're still themselves trying to solve for the layer 1 and 2 scale challenges. I don't know Hodgkinson and the rest of the Cardano team. Don't know them, never talked to them. So I can't tell you inside doors what they discuss, but I still see Cardano as innovate, get there to address these things that are critical, fast speeds, low transaction fees, quality smart contracts with all the capabilities to do things that support great use cases. That's where they're still going. So there you have it. This has been fun. I've really enjoyed the conversation with you guys. It's been really fun to connect with you guys as always. So until we do the next live stream, really appreciate you guys joining in, and share this out with some friends. And until next time, I will talk to you guys later. All right. Thank you guys.